When I heard the result of the Brexit referendum on June 24th, I felt it was a victory for many of the things that I find most despicable in the human animal. I felt it was a victory for the spirit of Nigel Farage, the leader of UKIP, and what I mean by that is that it was a victory for frivolity, ignorance, xenophobia, racism, small-mindedness, and meanness of soul. On the Supreme Court ruling saying that Parliament had to have a say on the whole business of leaving the European Union, I thought naturally it was an entirely sensible thing. Britain is a representative democracy, which means that what we do is we vote for people in Parliament to represent us and take decisions of state for us, which is what should have been done with the whole question of permanence or leaving the European Union. Unfortunately, David Cameron, for ultimately petty reasons, decided to go for a referendum and ask the people to make a choice on a question which the vast majority of the population really had very little understanding of the consequence of the answer to that question. And I think it's just a great shame that this principle that's been upheld by the Supreme Court wasn't upheld by David Cameron and wasn't the means by which the decision was taken, whether Britain should leave the European Union or stay. Well, I have a lot of personal things to share about Brexit, beginning with the fact that I'm half Spanish, and so therefore I just feel a natural instinctive affinity for the European idea. I've got a British passport, and it's the only passport I've had since I was born, but I took a decision since Brexit to take out Spanish citizenship, and I'm in the process now, hopefully, of obtaining Spanish nationality, which may not have much of an impact on the material circumstances of my life, but it's my little gesture of rebellion, my expression of distaste for what this country in which I was born has done.
Do you have one word to sum up how you feel today?
Sick. Well, for some Brexiters, clearly leaving the European Union is an article of faith or something profoundly emotional and therefore not susceptible to any kind of rational discussion. I might as well, with such people, attempt to persuade the same as persuading a true believer that God doesn't exist. It's not a conversation that's worth even bothering to have in the first place. Otherwise, I would hope that those who voted for Brexit on perhaps what they perceive to be a more rational basis will, in due course, begin to see those rational arguments undermined and will ask themselves the question, I think, which you can ask yourself right now, even before we see the outcome of all this. Isn't it? It's all been so damn unnecessary. I mean, Britain is now trapped with this whole Brexit exit negotiation business. It's going to go on for years and years, deviating resources of government away from other, perhaps more pressing issues. The whole thing is going to be immensely complicated, and for what? For what? It just seems so utterly and completely unnecessary. On the morning of the Brexit result, very early I got up to go and do a radio interview, and before I left my home, I looked into the room where my son, who then 16 years old, was sleeping, together with another friend of his age who'd come to spend the night. And I just saw them there, fast asleep, young and looking more innocent than their 16 years. And suddenly I felt a pang. I felt almost as if I'd had a knife to my stomach, because I suddenly understood that everything that I'd taken for granted for almost all my adult life, in terms of my sense of belonging to Europe and my possibilities of living, working, studying anywhere in Europe, something which I consider to be just beyond negotiable, just almost like a kind of most elementary human right, like breathing, that this was going to be denied to my son on account of this idiotic vote. It just, like I say, I felt it like a knife to my stomach, and I still feel that knife many months later wedged in my stomach, and I'm just shocked at the frivolity with which people cast this vote in favor of Brexit, not taking into account future generations, the young people today and future generations, and what it will mean in terms of the limitations it will put on their dreams and aspirations.